Mr. Chachra, you've seen the situation on the ground, perhaps of every nook and corner in the country, including Jammu and Kashmir. What has been your assessment, sir, of how things have transformed in the last 5 years, specifically after the abrogation of Article 370?
Thank you for having me here. And first off, actually, let me welcome the assurance given by the Honorable Prime Minister today that the statehood of Jammu and Kashmir will be restored soon. This, reasserts the primacy of Article 1 of our Constitution, the first article of our Constitution, that India is a union of states, and I wholeheartedly welcome it. You were talking of the critique earlier, Vinitji. You see, if I go back to the debate and the challenge which was there in December on the abrogation of Article 370, the Solicitor General on behalf of the Government of India had also promised that statehood will be, sort of re-established or given back soon. So I think that's happening in that direction. And the Supreme Court, as was mentioned by my previous speaker, Mr. Tyagi, was mentioning that, Supreme Court had indeed said that the assembly elections would be held by September of 2024. So I think this is indeed a welcome development, what I heard today with the speech. What I want to also say that in progress of Swaraj and Swadesh, the dreams we've always had, the idea is, to bring power, whether it's economic power. This is in response to your later question about the last 5 years, whether it's economic power or whether it's social, sort of power, if I may call it, or political power, closest to every citizen, closest to the person on the ground. And I think this means the direction of travel of, this is indeed true democratization. And the direction of travel in this instance also means, as was mentioned, I think work is needed on that it's not just federalism we are talking about, but it's also the development of democratic institutions at the local level, be it the Panchayati Raj mechanisms, be it the Panchayati Raj institutions, or be it the urban local bodies. This is indeed, and we are going to be celebrating Dr. Ambedkar's contribution on the 14th of April now, but this is indeed what Dr. Ambedkar had envisaged and had contributed to the Constituent Assembly debates in terms of what it means to have authentic democratization on the ground. So that's what I want to say. In terms of the last 5 years, sure enough, we see signs of progress. Sure enough, we see instances where central acts which were to benefit people, such as the Forest Rights Act and other acts which bring succor to people on the ground, were not being implemented in J&K earlier. We have the possibility, or let me call it, have a whisper of hope now, although much more work needs to be done, as I said, in authentic progress of what democratization promises. Let me also say one more thing in this instance. You see, there has been a long and winding road. Even the last 10 years haven't seen the assembly. This elections, when it was held, will be 10 years after the last assembly J&K has had. And it has been a high human cost during this process, and we hope we get there. But if I take you back to what happened in the defeat of apartheid in South Africa in 1994, Nelson Mandela had set up a commission, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, in order to heal the wounds, in order to do peaceful, reconciliation of what the terror of the history of South Africa during apartheid years went through. The same actually was reiterated in this debate on the abrogation of Article 370 by Justice Sanjay Krishna Kaul in his, the epilogue of the judgment, to say that perhaps the idea of setting up a Truth and Reconciliation Committee would be the way forward as far as the process in Jammu and Kashmir goes, which will, heal intergenerational trauma. You see, J&K, people in J&K have been in decades-long trauma. And I think that needs healing. That needs healing intergenerationally. That needs healing to build a peaceful future, a happy future, a democratic future. And this, lest it become memory and lest it become a painful memory, that's something we need to do in going ahead. So I do think this is going to be a fundamental departure point. The elections in Jammu and Kashmir, the local level democratization in Jammu and Kashmir, and bringing the benefits of full-scale developmental, sort of administration, constitutional promises, policy promises to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you. This is in the first instance, Vinitji. Yeah, I just want to say that, see, it's not, let's not do that. Not all history is bad. And I don't want to sit here and dismiss all history as bad. Kashmir,
Sure.
Jammu and Kashmir was one of the first states to do very meaningful and grounded land reforms. So not all history can be considered as bad. It went through a very bad phase, we all know, where peace was lost for the last 30, 40 years. So yeah, that's one point. Yeah, and I also want to say that just futures have to be therefore built on recognition of what was good, advance that further, and also identifying the gaps in a co-construction of a future. And as was mentioned, the co-construction of a future, a democratic future with the elections and post-it means adequate, grounded, grassrooted consultations with all of the people involved. So I think that's the path of building substantive democratic trajectories and substantive democracies, as Dr. Ambedkar had spoken about. So I think that should be our future direction of travel. Yes, wrongs have happened, but here is a path, here is a possibility, and I think we should collectively embrace that possibility to build consultatively futures which also take into account centrally the aspirations of women, men, and children of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you, Vinny.